Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. I am Dr. Samantha DeLoache, your model and pharmacist and your professional speaker coach. And we are here for another great edition of Public Speaking in Business. I have thoroughly enjoyed this series because I get the opportunity to talk to so many great entrepreneurs, businessmen and women who are making strides, making great, progress in their businesses, and they owe a lot of it to public speaking. And so I wanted to share these insights with you because even though I ask the same questions each time, the conversation is never the same. Each person brings their insight, their, special tips and their, information that really just gives us all a different perspective, a different point of view. So I love gleaning information from individuals. So I know today is not going to be any different. But before we get into that, I want to let you all know again about the Model Speakers Academy, because that's what really spearheaded me even doing this public speaking and business platform. I decided to create a platform or an academy, if you will, that gave individuals some support. Maybe they're lacking confidence, maybe they're lacking structure, they don't know where to begin, how to really, be a better speaker. And that's what it's really about, being a better speaker, a better communicator. And even if you don't want to be a public speaker, professionally, it doesn't matter. If you want to get advancements on your job, maybe get that promotion, or if you want to be seen as a community leader, or if you want to just be a better communicator with your family and friends, you can learn tips in this academy. It's an 8-week program, and we have a model framework that we go through. The M stands for motivate, the O stands for organize, the D stands for deliver, the E stands for engage, and the L stands for lead. So that's what we teach everyone, how to model their best selves and how to share their voice, share their story. So there's something for everyone, regardless of where you are in your journey. So I want to encourage you to sign up, and if you want to get more details, more insight, then, just drop me a message and I'll be glad to talk to you. I have a webinar that I do from time to time that gives you all the inside scoop of what the Model Speakers Academy has to offer. And then real quick, I have my first international speakers retreat happening next October 2025 in Bali, Indonesia. Yes, first ever. I'm so excited about it. The first 3 days is the speakers portion, and then the other 7 days is for anybody. If you just want to visit Bali and you don't want to go by yourself, you don't know where to begin to plan, then don't worry about it. We've already got all that taken care of. So it's a twofold experience, for speakers, or if you're not a speaker, it doesn't matter, but you will have a great time. So enough about that. I have Kimberly Spencer here today. I'm so happy to hear from her, and she's going to share about her business and all that she has to offer. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for inviting me and having me on your show, Dr. Samantha. Your retreat in Bali sounds amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Is it's in early 2025?
Well, October 2025.
October.
Yes. So it's a little
Oh,
time. So people can start making payments and, pay as they need to, long as it's paid for by August. So yes.
that sounds phenomenal.
Thank
Definitely, like for all the speakers listening, that sounds like an amazing opportunity to just seize, because I have heard so many rave reviews about Bali. I was just actually
you.
at a speakers conference where the founder was from Bali. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. So tell us about your business and your brand.
So I am Kimberly Spencer. I'm the founder of Crown Yourself and the CEO of Communication Queens. Crown Yourself is a coaching company. We focus on working with visionary leaders in building their brand authority and helping them really tap into new revenue streams, guerrilla marketing tactics, and strategies to be able to amplify their visibility. And it was from building this brand with Crown Yourself over the course of the past 9 years, when we got stuck in Australia, my primary form of lead generation went kaput. It, as I say in my book, it got COVID, because we were those Americans who got stuck abroad prior to 2020, live events, doing workshops, seminars, speaking engagements, conferences. That was my primary source of lead generation for my coaching company. And 2020 hit. I not only couldn't do it because of COVID, I couldn't do it because of my visa and being abroad in Australia. And so while I was abroad in Australia, I asked my team, I said, well, we got to figure out a way to get lead generation. And we started guest podcasting, and through being a guest on other people's shows, within 50 interviews, I generated over $70,000 worth of new business revenue for my coaching company. Fast forward over $250,000 later, I was like, we have something, we have a system. And so with having a second baby, I decided to create another business, like, any bit entrepreneur does. And we launched Communication Queens in 2022 and beta tested it. And Communication Queens, we're a done with you podcasting agency where we support our clients in getting booked on the right podcasts that build their brand awareness and their bottom line.
Wow, well, that sounds exciting. And I love how you were able to pivot. Sometimes when things happen and it's like, oh my goodness, what I'm going to do, but you have to be creative. And there are different ways to still get the bottom line. So that's excellent that, you were able to create, multiple businesses and still be able to have people get the help to help with their podcast, because podcasting is very big, now, everyone has a microphone. And sometimes I think that's a good thing or a good idea. And sometimes I think, maybe everybody doesn't need a microphone because, everybody is an expert now. And a lot of the information, unfortunately, is not, accurate, sometimes. And so people are, taking opinions as fact and they're basing their lives, unfortunately. So, we all have to be careful sometimes on, what we're listening to. And so that's why I definitely try to make sure whatever I bring, I know what it is, and, I know it's factual, and I try to, if it's an opinion, I'll say it's my opinion, and, kind of, stay on the right narrow with that type of stuff. But that's excellent. So we can get right into it. Why do you believe public speaking is a crucial skill for business professionals today?
Well, I think public speaking is influence strategy. And so whether you're like, one of the reasons I like public speaking on podcasts as a more naturally introverted person is I get to have the intimacy of a one-on-one conversation, and then it's broadcast out to hundreds of thousands of people, but it doesn't feel like it where you're standing on a stage naked. It feels like you're naked in front of everybody. It's taken me over 20 years to overcome the fears that I grew up with. I went from being so shy that I didn't speak in kindergarten, that I total transparency, peed myself when I would be called on to even answer a question in public. I was so scared to speak. I had selective mutism for 6 months of kindergarten. And through going through that experience and learning how do I build relationships, it came from public speaking. It came from putting myself in the uncomfortable scenarios, learning skill sets like comedic improv, drama, musical theater, putting myself in spaces that actually stretched a performance ability. So now, years later, when I get on the stage, there's a command of the stage that you can tell somebody who is skilled in presentation, because they command authority. And I don't care how, I have seen some people who are incredible authorities in their niche and in their industry, but when it comes to their presentation and public speaking skill set, they suck. And it doesn't mean that they're bad at what they do. It's just a different skill set. And I think we have to recognize that we may have a skill set in an area that we're incredibly competent in. Maybe it's building businesses, maybe it's, psychotherapy, maybe it's coaching, maybe it's leadership, whatever it is for you, that's your skill set that you're a master in. But there are complementary skill sets like public speaking that are required for the visibility of that main skill set that is your genius zone.
Wow. Well, that was good. And I love that you shared your testimony. So thank you for your vulnerability, because
Absolutely.
a lot of people think that everybody's born a great speaker, or that, people don't have challenges. And that's not true. We all have different experiences. I, personally used to stutter, growing up. And I used to, have trouble. I spoke very fast, and I still kind of speak a little fast, now. But, I had speech pathology. My mom signed me up, and I went through the program, and I got the confidence and learned the skills needed to become a better speaker. And just, I didn't have the thought process that I would one day want to be a professional speaker or be a motivational speaker and then open up my own speakers academy. But we all have to start somewhere. So thank you again for sharing that journey. And I'm glad you mentioned also that, just because you're good in one area does not mean that you know how to do a presentation or how to speak and have the charisma and have that stage presence. That's a process. That's a skill set that you have to learn and develop. So you can be an expert, But if you don't know how to deliver that message and make it engaging and make it, where people want to learn more, and know the tips like storytelling and just how to be authentic and be comfortable in that space, then your message is not going to come across and you're not going to get the results you desire. So
Mhm.
those are both, great points. Yes. So my next question is, can you share a personal experience where effective public speaking significantly impacted your career or business?
Yeah, so I had done about 150 podcast interviews up until the point of 2021.
Wow.
And I'd gotten a lot of practice, as I tell my clients, getting the reps in.
Yes.
I'd gotten a lot of reps into sharing my message, communicating it, telling my story. And because we were in Queensland, Australia, which was not super locked down like Melbourne was. It was like, I like to say we were in the Florida of Australia, where as long as you didn't leave the state of Queensland, like we lived a very normal life. Everything was pretty relatively open between 2020 and 2021. But if you left the state, like people couldn't get back in the state for their breast cancer treatments. Like they were that serious about
Mhm.
travel. But within the state, we lived a very normal life. And so I was very curious in 2021, and I had always had this ambition to do a TED Talk. And I was just I followed my curiosity. I was like, let's see if anybody is putting on a TED Talk in Queensland. And so I looked and I was like, definitely have the outlier factor of being an American living abroad. And, our story of getting, locked down in a foreign country. And I looked at a couple options. I submitted to two. One got back to me. Actually, one got back to me. The one that got back to me on the day my son was born. Yes, I was on my computer 16 hours later checking my email. I know.
Okay.
And we were in communication and in contact, and I had this idea, and the whole TED Talk theme was around possibility. And now I've been preparing for this idea of having a TED Talk for 3 years, and I had 3 folders in my Google Drive with ideas for themes, one of which was becoming a warrior for possibility. This is such a divine moment because in 2021, my father passed as well while we were abroad, and on the day that would have been my parents' 52nd anniversary, I found out that I had the meeting with the TEDx organizers. They said, yes, you will be we would love to have your story. We would love to have you do a TED Talk. And I knew the TED Talk was in 3 weeks. So I had 3 weeks to write, prepare, script, study, practice
Wow.
doing a TED Talk. And now this is a masterful stage to be on as a TEDx speaker. And I knew I wanted to have it nailed. And fortunately, as divine intervention would have it, I had been in a mastermind with a speaker coach who had coached the CEO of Salesforce. I reached out to her. I said, I need you. I need your support. Help me practice this. Help me stage this. I have a very supportive husband. He watched our 2 kids for the whole 3 weeks. And I was practicing with my baby like attached to me and strapped to me, but I had 3 weeks to prepare. And I was having a conversation and I did it and it was amazing. It was called Becoming a Warrior for Possibility, all about the strategies of decision making in emotionally tough times.
Mhm.
And years later, fast forward, I was talking to a friend of mine and she's like, I saw your TED Talk. It was so good. I'm doing the speakers retreat. I'm learning about this. I'm struggling with the instructor. And she's like, you did your TED Talk in 3 weeks. Like, why can't I do the same thing? And I said, well, have you also had 20 years of theatrical performance speaking experience to
Oh.
prepare you so that if the opportunity came, you'd be able to seize it? And she was like, oh no, I've just only been speaking for the past 2 years. I said, okay, so I'm an outlier, but it's because it's like when opportunity, what's that saying where they say
Opportunity meets success. No, an preparation meets opportunity, then you
when
get success.
yeah, when preparation meets opportunity. And so that's why it's essential for if you want to be able to seize those opportunities, doing courses like the Model Speakers Academy, working with a speakers coach, working with somebody who can get you to a level where when that opportunity presents itself, the fear-based brain, because believe me, my fear-based brain was like, oh, are you crazy? Do it in 3 weeks? Like, I know people who have prepared for 9 months to do their TED Talk, and I had 3 weeks. And at the same time, I knew that I have the skill set and the years of preparation to be able to deliver on that.
Right.
And so, and that TED Talk has gotten me for more speaking gigs. It's gotten me in front of masterminds and other audiences. It's been a great gateway talk and presentation to be able to serve at a higher level because of the credibility that comes with being on a TEDx stage.
Wow. That's such a beautiful story. And I saw so many nuggets in there. One, you showed just pure determination. You had just given birth. And so, like you said, you were ready for that opportunity. And so I think it's important that we have to look at, it's not necessarily when we were on stage or at that moment. It's all the steps and the practices and the preparation that got you to that moment. And so, yeah, because you knew you had done the reps and you felt rejuvenated, because I never had any children, but I think childbirth and just knowing like, hey, if I can carry a body and deliver a body, I can give a speech. Like, you just had
Right.
extra confidence in yourself, in your ability. Like, hey, I'm a mother, I can do this, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, this is a little challenge, but sometimes we're able to rise to those challenges that we might not normally have our opportunity to do if it wasn't presented. So you knew you had the practice, you knew you had what it took to
Yeah.
make it happen. And so I love that you did it, and that like you said, that opportunity opened the door for many others. And one day I want to do a TEDx talk myself. So yeah, so I love it, because I feel like when we're determined, like I said, when I just heard you talking about, I'm like, determination and just belief in yourself is what really matters. And then having that support system, like you said, your husband was there. And so a lot of times we have to make sure our circle or who we're around is pouring into us and supporting us, and not, putting fear into our hearts, or like, doubt, because trust me, those thoughts are going to come, but you're going to have to be able to overcome it. And, because you had that support system and you were just determined and you knew this was something that you wanted to do. And so you seized the opportunity, because sometimes when opportunity knocks, it's not going to always look pretty, or it's going to be challenging. And it's like, am I going to rise to the occasion, or am I going to shrink back and fold? We don't know what we can do until we stretch ourselves, until we push ourselves. So sometimes those opportunities come to see what's inside of us, see what we're really made of. And, can I do this? And the answer obviously was yes. You were able to do it, and you did it well. And so hopefully that's encouragement to our viewers that, sometimes our opportunities or our next levels are not going to come in a pre-package, or it's not going to come so easy. You're going to have to do the work, but it will be worth it.
And you're not going to feel always 100% ready ever.
Right.
Ever. Like, you're never going to feel 100% ready. I mean, definitely hindsight is 2020. And there are so many talks, presentations, keynotes that I've given that I can go back and be like, oh, I know how I could have done that better. Oh, I could have done that. But that's how we learn and continue to grow. And it's not about being a perfectionist about it. It's about saying, in that moment, I did the best that I could with the resources and time that I had available, and I will maximize and leave it all on the floor. I forget whether that was a lesson I learned from being a dancer when I was younger, is you just leave it all on the floor. You leave it all on the stage. You give your best performance that you can. And of course, there's always going to be feedback on ways that you can improve.
Right.
But leave it all on the floor.
That's right. No regrets, basically. Do what you got to do, and leave knowing that I don't have any regrets. I gave it my best shot. And so that's great. Yeah. So my third question is, what are some common public speaking challenges that many business professionals face, and how can they overcome them?
A huge one is the lack of story in their presentations. One of the tenets of my book that I wrote, Make Every Podcast Want You, How to Become So Radically Interesting You'll Barely Keep from Interviewing Yourself, is the fact that storytelling, even though I've had a varied, I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years. I've had multiple different careers, and to the outside eye, it could look like going from Pilates instructor to screenwriter to e-commerce business owner to coach to CEO of a podcast agency. Like, this is a very
unique
path. Yes. But the through line has always been story. And the through line has always been being in the business of being able to transform people's stories. And when we understand that our brains we are literally wired to learn in story. I give the example of in my book that there is the stone in Ireland, and you have to climb up 100 steps. You have to go onto the steps and you have to lean backwards, and then you kiss this stone. It's called the Blarney Stone. And it's supposed to give you, in Irish folklore, the gift of gab. Winston Churchill did it in 1911, I believe it was, and I did it in 2015. Now, I could tell you a story about the gift of gab and how to be a better communicator by saying, it's going to make you connect to your audience. It's going to allow you to resonate and have more greater influence. But a story that's unique, that's specific, that it doesn't have to be a massive drama story. It can be small and specific, but correlated directly to the message that you want to deliver. It can be a metaphor. It can be something from a movie. But there's a reason why Hollywood movies, and I say this having been a screenwriter with a movie that got picked up and distributed by Lionsgate and Netflix, like that story, thank you very much. That story through line, there's a reason why there are movies that flop and movies that succeed and go crazy. And it's because they have these specific narrative beats of an arc. And when you understand the story arc and how your story guides people into a belief system, an emotional state, you put a lot more intentionality into the work that you're doing. And I saw this. I was at a high-tech mastermind, and they were giving some literally life-saving information on new technology that is coming to the forefront. And people were leaving in droves because there was no emotional connection to the material. And it saddened me because I was listening, fascinated by what's going on, and also bored as hell by the speakers, because the speakers did not know how to connect information, strategy, and tactics to a story. When you're able to make that connection, you become an expert communicator and speaker so that you are able to draw your audience in, even if they don't have any prior understanding. I'm not a genius scientist. I like science, but I'm new. I didn't study that field. But being able to have someone to guide why this is important, what is important about it, how can this impact my personal life? I give the example of in 10th grade, I was struggling deeply with bulimia and body image issues and confidence issues. And I was learning the kinesiology of the body, and I had to memorize all the body parts of here's the rhomboids, here's the shoulder. And I was follow the snooze fast. And fast forward, though, 3 years later, I had discovered Pilates. Pilates was my gateway drug into fitness. That was actually my first business at the age of 19. I was a freelance Pilates instructor and ended up having a brick and mortar studio to support my career in entertainment. And it was from that experience that, through studying it, I suddenly started to, because I had a different teacher who understood how to communicate story. She communicated, when you engage the rhomboids in your back, it actually sends, and you roll your shoulders back, it actually sends a signal to your brain of more confidence. And I was like, where was this information when I was 15 years old and struggling with confidence? What was this? But it's because I had to have a relationship from the information in how the body and the muscular structure of the body tells a story to the mind. And once I was able to connect via that specific tiny little story of just engaging your shoulders, rolling your shoulders back, pick your chin up, and you'll actually send signals to your brain that you'll have more confidence, suddenly that sent me on, I had to study the body. I wanted to study and learn more about all the interconnectedness of the muscles. But I wouldn't have had that interest or that curiosity had I not learned of the story and the relationship to the why.
Right. Wow, that's so good. And I love that. And I think, something about, like you said, sitting up and, shoulders back. It does send, hey, I'm about the business, or it does give that confident edge. And yes, storytelling is so, so important because we've been, kind of trained growing up. Little kids, we got stories read to us as children. So you heard that once upon a time. So it's like we've been, indoctrined to look at stories and you tune in and you listen because you're like, okay, what are they about to tell me? And then you start using your imagination. So stories and storytelling allows us to paint a picture in the minds of the audience. We want to engage all five senses. And so they're going to listen. And so nowadays, of course, when you get on a stage, you're not going to say once upon a time, but you'll say,
Dan.
imagine this. Just imagine. So whenever we say imagine, then everybody knows, okay, I got to use my mind, I got to use my brain, and I got to see what they're telling me. So yes, you can have, again, the greatest information, like you said, you could be a great expert. But if you don't know how to convey it in a story and tie the facts to something that we can all relate to or help us paint that picture, then it's going to fall flat. So I definitely 100% agree that storytelling is something that we all need and you can continuously improve upon, because if you can be a good storyteller, then you're going to knock it out the park. And when we think about it, who are some good storytellers? Preachers. They tell a story every Sunday.
Mm.
Comedians, when they get up and tell jokes, they're telling you a story. They're making it funny, but ultimately they're telling you a story. And so we have to, learn to look at it like, how can I tell this message in a story or in a way that is going to not bore the audience, but get their attention and help them see it, make them remember it, because stories make things memorable. They allow you to, be able to share that message with someone else. Like when you go to a presentation and, yeah, this speaker was so good. She told us a story, or she told us about a time, and then people can relay that message. So that's excellent. That's a fabulous tip. And then my last one is, what is one essential tip you would give to someone looking to improve their public speaking skills?
Start learning how to tell a story.
Yeah.
Like learn what is the story arc, because not only does the story arc help you in telling stories, and we can get very meta with understanding how a story arc actually applies to where you are in business, where you are in your public speaking journey, because there are very specific beats of the story arc. There is the call to adventure, there's the climactic peak, and then there is the descension into that can sometimes have the all is lost moment of like, oh my gosh, here's the failure, or here's the great giant success. And then what are the lessons learned, or what is the success that's gained from that all is lost moment? So when you know these specific beats that are in every single story ever told, and you start to see it, you can also look at the stories of your own life. You can also look at the stories of your own learning. And when you know that, you've had this call to adventure to start speaking, but it's getting challenging, or you're finding it hard to get booked on stages, you're not yet on the other side of the arc. It's okay. And it gives you a lot more confidence that if you just keep going and go through, the story is going to have the successful ending. That's why I love this the saying, your success is inevitable, because as long as you know that story arc and where you are in the arc of the story, if you just keep going, working the arc, and don't slide back down to where you started and give up the call to adventure, you're going to have success. It's the plot line of every movie. But if you can have that plot line, if you can embed that plot line in the stories that you share on stages or on podcasts, and if you embed that plot line into looking at how that applies to your own journey of any skill set that you're building or any business that you're building, it gives you a lot more permission and freedom to say, oh, wow, I'm just not at the end of my story yet.
Right, right. And I love to tell people, you can always change your story. Just because you wrote it and it started one way, at any moment or any given time, you can change that direction. So you can rewrite your story. You're the author. So if you don't like the direction, or if you don't like how that story is unfolding, then make the changes. Switch out the characters. That means surround yourself with new people. Go to another setting, create a new background, or however you need to do it, but you can create your own story. And when you were just talking about the story arc, you made me think of what's one of the classic stories that we all know and remember from elementary school? Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Every adult probably right now can repeat that story because it had an arc. It had, the characters, it had the climax, it had the main storyline, it had the drama, and then it had the ending. So that's what we want to do. We want to tell our stories in such a way that it follows that flow, that arc, and that again,
Mhm.
people are going to remember it for months and years to come. Because when's the last time we read that story? Preschool, kindergarten, elementary school at the latest. But we still remember somebody porridge was too hot, somebody's porridge was too cold, somebody's bed was too soft, somebody's bed was too hard. You remember it because it had a flow. So wow,
Mhm.
that was so good. So Kimberly, how can we stay in contact with you? Share, about your book or what you may have going on. How can someone join that podcasting academy? Yes.
Yeah, if you love this episode and you want to follow me for more for visionary leader coaching and to grow your empire, you can head on over to the Crown Yourself podcast at crownyourself.com/podcast. If you want to learn how to better share your story, how to leverage guest podcasting in other people's audiences in order to get on bigger stages, you can head on over to communicationqueens.com/podcast and subscribe to the Communication Queen podcast. And of course, lastly, there is getting a copy of Make Every Podcast Want You, How to Become So Radically Interesting You'll Barely Keep from Interviewing Yourself, which is available on Amazon right now. It has hit bestseller. It is an awesome book. We were just featured in New York Times Square as one of the top books of 2024 that will change your life. So really proud of how far this book has come in just the past month that it's been out. And so go grab yourself a copy of that.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank
And definitely
you.
thank you for the information. So I'm going to include these links so that you all can get a copy of the book. Or if you want to, work with Kimberly, you'll have the links to do so. So I hope everyone enjoyed this edition of Public Speaking in Business, that you got some tips, some insights, that we know we need to work on our stories. And of course, if you need help in that area, the Model Speakers Academy is here to help you as well. But thank you so much, Kimberly, for your insight. And best wishes and everything that you have coming up for not only the rest of 2024, but 2025 as well.
Thank you. Right back at you, Dr. Samantha.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a good evening.